Hello, everybody. We are back. I am Anthony. That's Matt. We are the Amogus Burnouts, and we are going to bring you the season finale, the entire wrap up, everything for the multi battle conference, starting with the top eight.
So yeah, we've been on a little bit of a hiatus, so we're squeezing all of the playoff stuff into a single video. We're just going to be going through briefly describing some of the highlights of the matches and describing what happened a little bit and going over each individual team a little bit as we go. And then after that, we also have a little bit of information on what we're doing for next season as well. So stay tuned for that at the end of the video. We got some pretty cool stuff coming. So to start off, we're gonna be going over top eight. Most of these went as we predicted, with one rather significant exception. So let's kick it off with our first match.
All right. So, first up, we have the Matt Alcinas defeating the New England Patriots 1-0. This game actually came down to pretty close. It was, obviously it was the 1-0. But it started off pretty passive. We saw both teams didn't lose a mon until pretty late into the game. The Mats started off with the Inteleon Gengar lead, and the New England Patriots actually started off with the Arcanine Manectric lead. And what we saw was a combination of like trying to get Thunder Waves onto the Inteleon protecting, a lot of icy winds coming out, but a lot of just defensive play in general. Right away, the Arcanine switched out into the Clefable for the most part. And we saw actually the Clefable started going for like Moonblast and stuff. Actually picked up a couple of special attack drops, and then the game kind of flipped on its head once the Mats decided to hard switch into their Sun mode. They went out onto the Ninetales slot and then right into the Venusaur, or they came hard swapped into both Ninetales and Venusaur. In that same turn, the Venusaur got the Dynamax. They immediately were able to Dynamax. They went for a Max Ooze first turn right into the Clefable. They picked that up, and then they also, were able to pick up another KO onto the Manectric. Eventually, basically starting to tear holes through this team, and we basically ended up getting left down to Fungus and the Rillaboom. We eventually, we saw they did have Urshifu on the field, but there wasn't too much that Urshifu could really do after taking down the Beware. And even though it was a 1-0, we kind of it felt a little bit like the Mats were in control for the most part the whole time. Especially when the Sun mode came out. They were trading KOs that they were really comfortable trading. The Arcanine did come in and Dynamax with the Sun, but they traded their Akaberry Venusaur and all this other stuff to get a poison on it. The Vine Lash damage able to take it down. It got essentially only got the Gengar. They were good with that. The Urshifu took down the Beware. It got knocked out by the Rillaboom next turn. They were good with that. And the Fungus was able to pick up and clean up the rest of the game because of the fact that they worked themselves in that late game position.
Yeah, you were really able to see how it did only come down to a 1-0, but that's because the Rillaboom at the end was able to pick off a few mons. It basically came down to a 3 versus 1.
Yeah.
The Fungus, the Urshifu, and the Inteleon were still around at the end, and the Rillaboom was able to attack around the Fungus and KO the two other mons, and then the Fungus of course just walled it. Being a Fungus and
Yeah.
went for Sludge Bomb, so it was able to win. But yeah, pretty consistently throughout the whole match, it was just like the Mats were getting more damage off almost every turn, and
Yeah.
the Vine Lash especially, I thought, against the kind of bulky team that the Patriots have, was particularly devastating, especially because they basically it allowed them to one shot the Focus Sash and Teleon
Yeah.
because of the Vine Lash damage at the end of the turn too. So
Yeah, they make their team bulky. I think that's something that's also
yeah.
like significant. One of the things that we saw very early in the match was the Manectric actually was able to survive 2 icy winds plus a Mystic Water snipe shot.
Yeah.
Like just amazing bulk from a Pokemon that's not really considered all that bulky.
Right.
So, definitely they play it that way. They play it with a considerable amount of bulk. But the Mats ended up taking it 1-0. They moved on to top four. The second time that they've obviously got to top four. Their first year, I believe they didn't make it out of top 8, right?
Their
the Lucarios actually
first season, I can't remember back that far.
Yeah, I can't remember that far either. But they've made it here before us. So, and they actually beat the Patrats too when the Patrats were obviously on that incredible run last year. So
yeah, I mean they made top four or they made finals last
year,
season.
yeah.
So it's no surprise to see them in top four once again. The Patrats have had a phenomenal season. They've had we've been saying this from the beginning. Their synergy is among the best in the league, and their record really showed that. They had a lot of great games. A lot of them ended up coming down to time because of how defensively they would use these mons, but. And there's plenty of defensive synergy here, so it's makes sense why they would do that. But really a force to be reckoned with, both this past season and the one before. But they are now out in top 8. So congrats to the Patrats on a strong season.
Yeah, another strong season from them, and I believe. Cleffy's not coming back next year, so it'll be Alex and a couple other people. So
yeah. All right. The other match we have in Shield Division was us, the Mungus Burnouts, versus the Potatoes. The last time we played against them, we were able to get the upper hand against them with a mixed Duraludon with Max Quake. So I suspect, based on the way that they led this time, that maybe they were expecting something like that and trying to counter the Duraludon because they went with a Jolly Excadrill to outspeed the Duraludon, and they also led with their Urshifu, which we later found out was Choice Band. So a lot of power, a lot of anti-Duraludon stuff coming out this time, but we decided we identified pretty early on that their draft was pretty weak to water types. The water types are probably kind of difficult for them to deal with. The main thing they had to deal with water types was Exeggutor, and water types are typically going to get some ice coverage, and we definitely used that on ours here. Mm-hmm. So that ended up working out really well. We led with Volcarona Blastoise. For the first and only time in the league, we actually went for a Shell Smash and Dynamaxed the Blastoise. Next to a Rage Powder Volcarona. So the first turn, we really got everything we wanted. The Volcarona just went down to a Rock Slide. We got a free Shell Smash, and then the Dynamax slot went into Blastoise on turn 2. We Dynamaxed and blew up the Excadrill. The Blastoise just blew up the Drapion, and even when Exeggutor came out, we just went for a double Ice Beam on it. It did Dynamax and had a Yachi Berry. Blastoise's Ice Beam broke through the berry, and Slowking's Ice Beam finished it off. And from there, we were able to get Pincurchin in and did kind of the same thing we did in the first time we played him. We went for a late game Trick Room with the Slowking and Pincurchin. We were able to get it up pretty much without a problem. They kind of had their Galarian Slowbro still on the field. Wasn't really doing a whole lot of damage. We were able to just one-shot that with the Choice Specs Pincurchin as we set up Trick Room, and then the Urshifu came in, and Pincurchin blew up that thing as well. So pretty commanding lead, pretty commanding victory by us once again. We were able to just tear through a lot of their Pokemon with our Dynamax, and destroyed one side, and our Trick Room mode in the late game just was able to clean up the other. So
yeah, I think one of the things too that kind of enabled us to go for the Blastoise this time rather than last time is one of the transactions that we made. We dropped the Cottony for the Comfey, And that made us a little bit more comfortable to go for stuff like Water Spout, even though we only clicked it once and it was into a double protect. Um, you know, it just made it more comfortable for us to have it out there, so that way Blastoise can have somewhat consistent damage coming out after it got set up, even if it got chipped down.
Yeah, it's just a little awkward having. I mean, if you can get it off without taking damage, the Shell Smash Water Spout is amazing. It's a huge amount of damage. It's just a little scary trying to do that when you know you're probably going to take some damage while you're setting up.
Yeah.
And then your water spouts, depending on what kind of attack you take, maybe your water spout's not doing much damage at all, even though you're boosted. So it's a little dangerous, but having that priority healing just makes it a lot more viable of an option.
I will say too that Blastoise, even though it probably is on the top of the kill death sheet, I've said it before, it's probably our MVP.
Yeah.
It's been the Swiss Army knife. Anything that we need, Blastoise has been able to provide, whether it be fake out pressure, helping hand support,
Or mist.
follow me, mist, just icy winds. And we ran a mixed shell smash set, with brick break. So it's really been an MVP, and it was really nice to showcase it and make it be an offensive powerhouse here in one of our playoff games. We identified, if you go back and watch our analysis of the potatoes in the beginning, you can tell that we actually identified that they weren't going to be able to deal with a bulky water type, as Matt had said earlier. And Blastoise really was the perfect choice to kind of try and get set up on them, and it really showcased why. So kudos to the potatoes. Alyssa and Henry, they're good players. We always have to prep hard for them. This is a team that is a force, and we really like their draft coming into it. They may not have performed as well as they wanted to in the regular season, but regardless, the caliber of player and the caliber of draft this is makes them just as dangerous. It really doesn't matter. So
yeah, I mean, I still maintain that they have one of the scariest drafts on paper, at least.
Yeah.
It was one of the more difficult ones to prep for sure. And they're league veterans now, like us, and I'm excited to have them back for next season. This is also I believe this is the first time that they were able to make playoffs. Is that correct? So kudos for that. I'm sure we'll see them again. In playoffs next season. So I'm excited to see these guys coming back and see what they do. I'm also wondering if Alyssa will be able to resist picking Dialga in season 5 now that it's back. I'm assuming it's going to be in the U tier, which it probably will be again. This is I don't think it's a coincidence that this is the first time they don't have a U tier, and it's also the first time they made playoffs. But it's entirely possible to pick a U tier and do well anyway. I mean, we know Doesn't Click won the league with Palkia before. There's been some examples of stuff like that. So even though generally I think that a more balanced team is better, we may be a little biased considering how balanced ours was, but I think it's an interesting point, and I'm interested to see whether they go with the Dialga next time or not, and if they do, I'm interested to see how that does. Either way, more than happy to have them back. I'm excited to see them again.
All right. So next up, we actually have in Sword Division the top seed versus the bottom seed here, the Sky Pillars versus the Seniors. This one was very, very interesting. It went back and forth really a lot. We saw the Seniors come out with a Corviknight NDD lead, whereas the Sky Pillars came out with, I believe it was a Rillaboom and a Riolu. And they came out, the Seniors maxed the Corviknight right away, went for an expanding force, and the Sky Pillars apparently didn't like their positioning very well. They right away switched out the Riolu and the Rillaboom, went into Milotic and Milotic and Luxray, and essentially sacked them off, because the next turn they again doubled up. They went for an expanding force plus airstream, and they were able to pick up the double KO. And you're sitting there thinking, this Corviknight is at +2 speed. This NDD is at +2 speed. Psychic Terrain is still up. The expanding forces are coming out. It's doing major damage, and they are up 6-4 at this point. They've taken 2 KOs. And you're thinking the Sadistic Seniors are sitting in a pretty position, and then we see the Chandelure and the Togekiss come in. The Togekiss right away Dynamaxes, and we see the Chandelure going for the for the Heat Wave, gets the burn on the Corviknight, something that, I don't think it probably mattered too much because
Right. Yeah.
it did get the Max Steel Spike off into the Togekiss beforehand before it was burned. Did that major damage. They did end up going for the Tailwind the next turn before it was knocked, or after, before it was knocked out. So I don't think it mattered too much, but it really kicked the momentum off once the Togekiss came in and it started putting down pressure. We saw the Raichu come in, immediately get taken down. Got a good Electro Web off. Like, I won't discount that didn't get a good Electro Web off. It allowed the Kingler to come in and do some damage. But the Sky Pillars just started rolling with this Togekiss. It just picked up multiple crits. A couple of them mattered, a couple of them didn't. But, it came down essentially to the Kanto Marowak against the Rillaboom, and there was really nothing else that they could do at that point. The Sadistic Seniors, played incredibly well, but the Sky Pillars were just able to come back and from the brink. It seemed like I really thought that the Seniors were in a really good position once they picked up that double KO. I felt like they were in a good spot, and then you just shouldn't underestimate Togekiss. They had the coverage on it. They were able to get the sunset up, start launching these max flares or the heat waves and doing damage, and
Yeah, I mean, when I first watched this match, like, I knew the result ahead of time.
Yeah.
And after I saw that those first 2 Mons on the Sky Pillar side went down just for free without doing anything, like, I knew that the Sky Pillars had won, but I was wondering to myself, like, how the hell do they come back from this? Like, really? And then you see how.
Yeah. So big props to the Sky Pillars there. That's that really shows their ability to not only prep, because prep is one thing, but to make in-game decisions, stuff that may seem like crazy on paper, but hey man, let's sack Luxray, let's sack I'm sorry, the other Pokemon that they had out there, Milotic.
Yeah.
You're thinking to yourself, oh, this isn't going to work out well, and the Togekiss comes in for free, essentially. The Chandelure comes in, is able to put major pressure down, and they were able to bring it back there. So kudos to them. The Seniors are a force to be reckoned with. We're going to see them again. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I think it was Marcus that said he's going to be leaving, right?
I was under the impression they're both coming back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think as of right now, yeah, they are.
Okay,
So.
awesome. So yeah, that's great. So hopefully they both end up coming back. We want them back in the. Hopefully they're going to be able to make a deep run in the playoffs next year too. So
Yeah, these guys felt like kind of a wild card team this season, especially taking that last slot in the Sword Division playoffs. I mean, that last slot was such a contentious race, and it really it came down to the very last game played in week 10. I don't think anybody expected that to happen at all. That's absolutely crazy.
And every kill mattered on top of that one too. So
Yeah. I mean, when you say every kill matters, like you gotta think about the Seniors.
Yeah.
And they've had such a crazy team too, and like this team did a lot of stuff that I didn't expect. They brought the Spritzy way more than I would have expected, and Turtonator too. I don't know if I ever really expected those two to hit the field, but I mean, Zach and Marcus are crazy enough to run in with this kind of a team. So props to them. They were a force to be reckoned with. They had a very dangerous team. They're great players, and I'm interested to see what kind of weird stuff they do next time.
Here's what I'll say too about the Sky Pillars, just to add on to the totality of the match.
Yeah.
I feel that they started off hot, and they got a target on their back early. And it's difficult when other teams perceive you as a threat because they prep for you harder. And it takes a lot to answer the bell. It really shows like the type of team you are when you're able to answer the bell and you're able to take another team's best week after week after week and put in the work to still come out on top. And this is their first year doing that. So like most teams at this point, if it's your first year, you catch a couple teams by surprise, you get your way into the playoffs, sure you're first seed, and but it's not uncommon for teams to be like, all right, well, we're veterans, we've been in this league for a while, we're gonna bounce you out of the first round. Like that was cool what you did in the regular season, but now that you have a target on your back, now that we know that you're a good team, like we're gonna bounce you out. And they've shown that they have elite chemistry, they have elite play, elite like they are an elite team. They're going to be a team that consistently makes the playoffs, and so kudos to them for not only reaching the number one seed, but getting there too, and actually producing, because that's harder than it sounds.
Yeah, it is. It really is. All right, and our last top four game, top eight. It was our only real upset, but it was a really big one. Doesn't Click going into this playoff round was clearly one of the scariest teams. I know that most teams, maybe all teams in Sword Division, were kind of nervous about going up against them, and voiced that concern at one point or another. And yet the Talonflames were actually the ones that came out on top here. So this game started out with a Cinderace Raichu lead from Doesn't Click and a Gyarados Marowak lead from the Talonflames. This one kind of seemed almost like a 50-50. Like, at some point, either turn 1 or turn 2, you're going to go for a Max Darkness on the Marowak and try to hit the Gyarados, presumably with an electric-type attack. You can either choose to do that turn 1 or to try to go for an Airstream to outpace the Gyarados' Airstream if you think the Marowak is going to Protect. Turned out the Marowak went for Protect, and the Cinderace ended up going for Max Darkness. And the Raichu didn't actually go for an electric move. It went for a Charm onto Gyarados, which was a bit of a safer move, which I do like from Doesn't Click, because they were also kind of covering for that Protect. But because the Cinderace did not boost its speed and the Gyarados did with its own Max Airstream, the Gyarados was able to move first the following turn, go for a second Airstream, and then the Marowak revealed itself to be jolly max speed, and with +2 speed actually outsped the Cinderace and KO'd it with a big thick club boosted Flare Blitz. And then you saw the Raichu going for an electric attack. I think it was just a Thunderbolt on that second turn, because Doesn't Click looked like they expected to outspeed the Marowak and blow it up with probably another Max Darkness, which would have been really great if it worked out, because the would have dropped the Gyarados' special defense. Thunderbolt would have been a pretty easy KO, but the turn 1 read and the fast Jolly Marowak really just put the Talonflames in the driver's seat. So much of Doesn't Click's offense relies on the G-Max Cinderace, especially when that's the one that they're maxing. And they basically only got one max move off for the whole game. It went into a Protect, and then they lost their max, and they lost their most offensive Pokemon. The momentum was all on the Talonflame side after that happened. The Primarina was still able to pick up a KO on the Marowak, but that was the only KO, as you can see here by the score, the 5-0 score. That was the only KO that Doesn't Click managed to get the whole game. And the Marowak KO didn't even really matter all that much, because it allowed the Talonflames to bring in Tangela next to Musharna, and get Trick Room up pretty easily. And the Tangela and Dragalge and Escavalier under Trick Room were just able to put out a lot of offense. And it doesn't click couldn't really do anything about it. They had a slow mon in Galarian Corsola, but the Corsola just wasn't doing enough. It was it hazed one turn to get rid of the Calm Mind boost on Musharna, threw out some Nightshades, but pretty much everything else, like the Mamoswine and the Obstagoon, they were taking a lot of damage from some of the other slow Pokemon on the Talonflame side, and they just had all the momentum after that early game play, and getting in a good position to set up Trick Room there. So they were able to take a crazy 5-0 game off Doesn't Click, and move on to top 4 and knock Doesn't Click out of the playoffs. So clearly the biggest upset here. Well, really the only upset here, but it was a really big one. I don't think anybody expected this match to go the way that it did. So, and I think that's a testament to how strong of a team Doesn't Click is. They're the only team to have won this league twice. I would argue in terms of skill, they're probably at the top of this league. They had what we thought was the best draft when we were doing our initial power rankings at the beginning of the season. They had an incredible amount of synergy. They had a lot of power. It was just it looked like a draft where they just got everything that they wanted.
They said they got everything that they wanted.
I believe so, yeah. So which makes a lot of sense, because this stuff, like, the only differences here really between this and the beginning of the season was they had regular Cinderace instead of G-Max, because the Russians picked up the G-Max version first, and they had Silvally instead of the Mamoswine, which doesn't really change how good the team is very much. I mean, I think Silvally and Mamoswine, you can justify both of them in that slot, and even without those, like, there's just such fantastic synergy here, and there's enough power as well, so that you're not just locked into playing a kind of defensive synergistic game, a lot like we've seen from the Patrats. So yeah, I just can't I can't give Doesn't Click enough props for the kind of the impressive team that they are, and the history they've had with the league, and how dominant they've been in so many seasons. And I'm glad to see them back in playoffs this time, because after winning their second season, they just barely missed playoffs last time. So I'm at least happy to see them back in playoffs where they belong. And we'll most definitely see them next season as well.
And, on the other side of the coin, too, big props to the Toronto Talonflames here. They came in, they really made some of the best adjustments on their team all year.
Oh, yeah.
With the transactions. They made great use. Honestly, if you want a way to properly use and utilize the transaction periods in making your team better, the Talonflames did it better than anybody else across any of the years that I've participated in. I've never really seen a team go from, because we talked about it in our draft analysis.
Yeah.
Teams can go from being like a B to like being an A or an A plus. Like, we say that all the time. Like, this team. We said that about a few teams. Like,
it's rare that
a couple of transactions. Yes.
Yeah.
This team did it.
Yeah.
This team took a B minus team, a B team, and they made it into an A plus team, a team that could compete with the other big boys and Doesn't Click, that was able to secure a spot relatively early in the playoffs, that had the consistency and the versatility to put out wins. So big props to them. This was a huge win. Can't wait to see what else these guys can do, because honestly, like, you don't fluke a 5-0 win against one of the best teams in the league. You just don't. So, it shows that they did an immense amount of prep work. Big props to them. So we expect big things, not only in the obviously in the rest of the playoffs, but in the future of the league as well. So, all right, and now we're gonna move on to top four, where we have the winners, the Mats and us, the Amogus Burnouts, versus the Sky Pillars and the Talon Flames, and we will get into those.
So these are our finals for each division as well.
Yes, the Sword Division and Shield Division finals. So starting with us, the Amogus Burnouts going against the Matt Alcinas. We ended up taking a 5-0 victory.
Again. I'm sorry, I had to.
We have a good rivalry with the Mats. Obviously, they use my partner's face here and name as their.
Is that what they're doing?
I don't know if you noticed.
No, okay. That's news to me.
On the label right there, but
okay.
We have a really good rivalry with them. Ben and Vichy are fantastic players, and they knocked us out of playoffs last year after we felt. I still feel it was one of our strongest drafts that we've ever had that we had last year, and they were able to knock us out and go on to the finals, and we beat them a couple of times in the regular season, but they got us really where it mattered the most. So we really wanted this win badly, almost too badly, I could honestly say.
Yeah.
We prepped the night before. We attempted to, and we sat there for a long time, and we kind of were just banging our head against the wall there before we finally nailed down essentially what we wanted to do. Essentially what we wanted to do was the reverse of what we did last week. We figured, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead. We'll use this Volcarona. We'll try to get some redirection with Blastoise, and see if we can support us just taking it all completely from there. So what we had was, I believe they led Urshifu and Inteleon, correct?
Venusaur Inteleon.
Or Venusaur Inteleon, yes.
They maxed the Venusaur
They maxed it right away, yes. And one of the things that you could tell right away if you watch this is, man, we kind of knew everything that was going to come in these first couple of turns. We had the Rindo Berry on the Blastoise, so that way we can survive the Vine Lash. And we were able to Quiver Dance up and start immediately putting pressure.
Oh, no, we maxed on turn 1.
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah, we maxed. The reason why is because we saw in Team Preview that they did not have Ninetales.
Yeah.
So they actually did not bring their primary. So we had EV'd the Venusaur to be faster than the... Or I'm sorry, not the Venusaur. The Volcarona to be faster than the Venusaur. So once we knew that we didn't need to do any of that, we maxed turn 1. We immediately started putting pressure down. And, Volcarona picked up 3 quick KOs. It got knocked out, and Hitmonlee came in.
Did it ever?
One of the few things that we honestly didn't think it was gonna be that good. We had it obviously there because we were scared of Fungus. We had Blaze Kick on there because we didn't want to get redirected into there and not do anything. And one of Matt's more ingenious preparations, we put Citrus Berry on the Hitmonlee, knowing that Vine Lash was going to chip it down into Citrus Berry range eventually, and we were going to get the Unburden boost, and the Unburden boost came as soon as the Urshifu switched in, making us faster than the Urshifu to threaten the close combat, and we were able to play mind games.
Got a one-shot on the Incineroar too, which is kind of the only thing on our team that could do that.
One of the things that we really struggled with in the last game that we had reviewed, we went for a Trick Room mode and actually didn't get any KOs in the first 5 turns of Trick Room. Set Trick Room again and only picked up 2. And one of the main reasons for that was their incredibly defensive play with Incineroar. And this was a game that we 5-0'd them, but we were only able to pick up 2 KOs in 10 turns because of the defensive play from Incineroar. But once we got rid of the Incineroar, it started to snowball. So having the addition of Hitmonlee there allowed us to pick off the Incineroar a little bit better and really allow us to clean up the rest of the team, because Incineroar is just a disruptive Pokemon in general with Fake Out, with Intimidate, Snarl, Parting Shot, so many different things that enable its partners to just go off and do the damage that it wants to do because it's playing the defensive pivot so well. So
That's why we had mist on Blastoise too.
yes, we didn't get to click it, but we
Yeah.
were extremely scared of just Snarls going off and neutering Volcarona
And parting shot too.
and parting shots. So one of the things that we did was we wanted mist so that way our stats couldn't be dropped, because that was something that we were very susceptible against, was just constant Snarls, constant just stat drops that really stifle what we want to do in general. So, and if we know Ben and Vichy, we know that they picked up on that right away. They know what we're trying to do. It's always fun to play against them because it always seems like we're in each other's heads. They do something that preps, and we're just like, wow, that's really impressive. We didn't think they were going to see that coming. And then we do stuff to them. We see their videos, and they're just like, oh, my God. Like, I can't believe they prep for us like that. Like, so big props to these guys. We really wanted to win this one because get our little redemption arc in. But big, a lot of it just had to do with the prep. I mean,
Yeah.
It was really, really difficult for us to do. We came together with something at the very, very, very last minute.
This was it was easily the most difficult time we've had prepping for a match all season.
Yeah.
Usually, like we at least hammer out a solid game plan. If we're gonna prep the night before, like we finish prepping that night for the most part. Like we'll go tweak some EVs a little bit later, but like we have most everything in place with the exception of
move sets, items.
Right, pretty much everything most of the time. This time we
had nothing.
Yeah, we kind of decided like, all right, we need to table this, sleep on it. Toward the end of the night, we finally settled on the lead, mostly because we found mist. But we'll probably get deeper into that in a future video. You guys will find out what we're planning at the end here. But we had to plan over the course of like 2 days, which is not normal for us. And
No.
But I think it was worth it.
Yeah, big props to Ben and Vichy, man. They're really, really talented players. They don't hesitate to bring stuff that you may think is wacky, but will absolutely beat you.
Yeah.
So
I think that for a lot of teams, you look at their draft and go like, oh man, those are some scary mons to go up against, and I think that's true for this draft here. But like, I look at Ben and Vichy themselves and go, man, those are some scary players to go up against, because that like they're totally capable of running standard stuff and doing well with it. But it's also really hard to tell when they're gonna pull out something really wacky. I mean, they used Choice Scarf and Incineroar against Alan and Hector, like,
and then stuff that's just solid that will beat you. Like we saw Charm on the Ninetales, Icy Wind on Inteleon. So stuff that you don't see on standard teams, but generally very solid moves on good Pokemon. Like Icy Wind on Inteleon in certain situations can be game winning.
Yeah.
Charm on a fast Pokemon like Ninetales to just neuter offensive threats, especially against certain. If like, oh, they can't beat Ninetales as far as speed, because Ninetales is fairly fast, base 100, right?
Yeah.
So if you look and you say, hey, they don't really have that fast. The Ninetales is just neutering everything with Charm, something that you normally don't see on it. They've ran Blind Hypnosis on Gengar. They're not afraid to run things that they're like, it's, it'll shut them down. We need it in this particular matchup. Whereas I feel sometimes teams, they want to be like double stab, set up, move, protect, because that's the standard. That's the safe thing to do. So kudos to them for always finding that balance.
Yeah, they're clearly one of the best teams in the league. I mean, they've had twice in a row now. They've had a really deep run. I mean, they didn't do as well as they did last time, but it's hard to repeat that kind of a performance. They made it into finals last time. They almost did this time. Top 4 is still very impressive, as was their regular season as well. So, these guys are definitely coming back. I always, like you said, I always love playing against these guys. So, definitely looking forward to seeing more of our SoCal pairs like them next season. All right. Then we have the Sword Division finals, which also ended 5-0, this time in favor of the Sky Pillars. So this game was it looked almost like it was going to be a repeat kind of game from the Talonflames because they led with the same thing as they did in top eight. They had the Gyarados Marowak lead, and the Sky Pillars went with the Togekiss and Luxray. I believe they also ran the Turbo Whack here, the super fast Jolly Marowak. So early on, it was kind of unfortunate that the Gyarados max turn one, which I thought that was a little bit of a weird play, and I might have shot the Talonflames in the foot a little bit because the Luxray had intimidated both Mons on entry at the beginning. So Dynamaxing an offensive Pokemon where its offensive stat is at -1, it's a little bit questionable, not great. You could see you could really tell that it was not doing as much damage as it really should have been doing when it was firing off those max moves. So it went for a nice airstream turn one. It outsped the Togekiss, but it just didn't really do all that much damage. The Marowak unfortunately missed a Poltergeist, but we did see it move before the Togekiss on turn one, which is why I say it was probably that same Marowak. But then the Togekiss ended up getting a critical hit on its own max airstream, taking out the Marowak immediately, and then I think the Talonflames made their second mistake here. The first one being maybe Dynamaxing that Gyarados at -1. They ended up bringing Escavalier in when they had the option to bring in Tangela. Now, bringing in Tangela presents its own problems because the Togekiss can obviously do a lot of damage to it, especially since it's maxed. But at least it had a shot at maybe redirecting a hit from the Luxray, because the Luxray the next turn just went for an electric move into the Gyarados and took it out immediately. So Gyarados only got 2 max moves off, and the Togekiss set up the Sun with a max flare. So but the Escavalier lived because of rain and the Akaberry. It actually took very little damage. The problem for the Talonflames though was that they were on the back foot immediately, and then just were not in a good position to be setting up their Trick Room mode. I think if they had brought in Tangela instead of Escavalier, maybe they go for a Protect and bring in Musharna the following turn and go for a Rage Powder Trick Room. That might have got them where they need to go, but with the way that the game played out, they just weren't really able to utilize their Trick Room mode to its full effect, and the Sky Pillars were able to clean up pretty well, even after their I believe it was the Luxray that went down, and then the Togekiss I think actually just sat on the field the whole time, and I think the Togekiss and Rillaboom were able to finish things off. So pretty decisive win for the Sky Pillars there. They just took a lot of momentum immediately, kind of like the Talonflames did in top 8, and they just didn't let the Talonflames Trick Room mode bring them back into the game. So pretty decisive victory there. Anything to say on this match or these teams?
Honestly, not anything else I want to say about the Sky Pillars. I feel that they just kind of reinforces my idea of them having the target on their back of being the feared team and being surgical with this win. It did play out very straightforward for the most part, but it played out straightforward because of their prep. Making sure that they led Luxray to neuter the lead, and essentially making sure that the Luxray was going to stay there in general, so that way it could put pressure on the Gyarados. Having the Togekiss just sit out there, knowing that it was just going to be able to do whatever it wanted. I think that it was just honestly just great prep surgical would be the way that I would put it. Props to the Talon Flames. They obviously have the talent and they have the team building capabilities to be a consistent playoff team. But I feel that the Sky Pillars showed why it seemed like there was two levels of sword division. It was doesn't click in the Sky Pillars up here, and then everybody else was in another level. It seemed like, and the Sky Pillars, showed why. Even though the Talon Flames obviously beat Doesn't Click in the last round, the Sky Pillars still showed like, hey, this is the big leagues now. We're one of the top teams in the or in Sword Division, and there's a significant gap, and they proved it. So honestly, props to them. They've first year making it to finals. I mean,
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, that's major props to them for being able to do that. So
I do have to give some props to to the Talon Flames here as well, though. I mean, it's taking out Doesn't Click is no easy feat. We've already talked about how much we loved their transactions. They went from kind of a middle of the pack kind of draft to probably one of the better drafts, and it really showed in the way that their games played out, and especially going from their position in the league last year to the one their position this year, making it all the way to top four. Last season, I think Gumi is new this season, but last season Tofu had a different partner. They were the Fierce Ferrets at the time, I believe, and they didn't do so well, and then they came back. Gumi came in. They rebranded themselves as the Toronto Talon Flames, and they were a serious. They were a really serious team, and they obviously took the league very seriously. They're very active in the server. You could tell they put a lot of effort into their team, especially with the way that they were trading Mons around. The Tangela as an early season trade was just, God, it was so huge.
yeah.
So, and I think based on the way that the way that they've been talking, it kind of seems like they surprised themselves with this placement too. Kind of seemed like they didn't really expect to go this far. I know I think Gumi at least said once before. I think it was Gumi at least said that he was surprised they even made it into playoffs, and here they are at top four after taking down one of the strongest teams in the league. So props to them for getting as far as they did and accomplishing what they did, and I think the way that they played and the way that they built their team along the way was rather impressive, especially coming from maybe a not so great finish last season. So props to the Talon Flames for sure.
And one of the things too, it's I'll tell you this team that they have here is much different than the team that they had in the beginning when we first graded it. This team is an A team right here. This team is a top 3, top 4 team. If we would have seen this, probably would have ranked it ahead of the Potatoes. Probably would have ranked it. We would have ranked it. Yeah, like 3 or 4.
Easy, top 5 easy.
Top 5 easy. Yeah. Instead of being like around 6 or 7 where they were at. So it just proves that your draft, while it does supply you with a base, you have to build on that a little bit. You have to do little things that are going to make your team better.
Yeah.
And they did that transaction period after transaction period after transaction period. So kudos to them, as you said. And that brings us to finals. Is there another slide after this? This is it, huh?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there another slide after this?
Yeah, one more, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, we have our best of 3 finals here. We're not going to go too deep into this because we're actually going to do a post commentary ourselves over the actual video of these battles. But we can give the gist of how they went. I think a lot of us probably saw these on Alyssa's stream, but for those who are interested, we actually took a loss in game 1, which was a little bit rough. They led the Sky Pillars led really really well. They ended up going for a Scarf Luxray with Snarl, which was frankly a really good choice against us. I mean, our team, depending on what we're doing, a lot of the time it's pretty weak to Snarl spam, and it did a lot of work here. I mean, that's why we ran Mist on Blastoise in top four. So I think that was a really good bring against us, especially with the Duraludon not really having a great way to offset that itself. We did put it next to the Grimmsnarl. That was our lead for game one, as the Sky Pillars led the Luxray and Rillaboom. We were getting some fake tears off to sort of try to offset the Snarls, but it wasn't really enough. We kind of wanted to tear through their team with Duraludon. Didn't really work out, largely because of the Luxray. And then from there, because the Duraludon didn't put in too much work, we had to rely a little bit more on Volcarona. There was a double protect that kind of prevented Volk from doing everything it wanted to do, and from there, we just really didn't have the offense to put out to finish off the game. But it went slowly enough that we didn't go down to 0 Mons. We ended up losing 3-4.
Yeah.
Game two. Do you want to take game two?
Well, I mean, game two basically came down to this. We realized that Volcarona was a threat. Game three came down to that too.
Yeah.
We realized Volcarona was a threat. They had very, very little answers for it, especially considering that they had left Chandelure on the bench.
Yeah.
We were running Giga Drain plus Fiery Dance, so the fire-water coverage more or less hit their team for either super effective damage or for very, very, very heavy neutral damage. Because, we were able to get the Volcarona usually boosted at +1, plus put it in Sun, and then giving those stab-boosted Fiery Dances in Sun. Neutral is just going to do a bunch of damage, especially next to the fake Tears Grimmsnarl. So in this particular game, especially in game two, we led with the Blastoise Volcarona. It made it a little bit awkward because the Volcarona was in the player 1 slot, and we wanted to get set up with the Quiver Dances. We won't get too much into what our original plan was.
We'll save that for
later.
Yeah.
But what that ended up forcing us to do was to either try and Quiver Dance and protect, or protect and Quiver Dance in that turn 1, turn 2 area that we had there. We ended up getting the Quiver Dance off. We ended up being able to protect into the Dynamax, and then immediately start putting down pressure. Then after that, basically, I think it was pretty much just Volcarona that whole way, right? What was it?
Volk ended up going down toward the end of the game. Duraludon just came in to clean up the Togekiss.
That was it. Yeah, and it was just, you're right, it went down to Togekiss Air / Crit.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. And the Duraludon came in, but more or less what we realized was that that Volcarona with its speed stat at +1 was going to be able to tear some major holes into this team. And
it also made us faster than the Scarf Luxray too, which was really huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think Verrett made a comment that I was gonna remember Luxray's name after the after the final. He wasn't wrong. I
mean, is it Luxray or is it Raikou though?
I don't even remember. Sorry, it's not anything with the Pokemon. I just have a terrible memory. But it really put us into a tough spot.
Yeah.
It made our calling of a double protect look genius, but the reality is we were so scared of the Scarf Luxray that we were like, just target it down. Who cares what the stupid Golurk does?
Yeah, that thing was a threat. I mean, we ended up doing, I think we did the same thing in game 3, at least against the Luxray.
Yeah.
So game 2 was mostly just a Volcarona sweep. Game 3 was completely just a Volcarona sweep. We ended up leading it next to Comfey, and going for a charm on the Golurk was so clutch, especially because we had Charty Berry and we took very little damage from that Rock Slide, and we were able to Quiver Dance up and max on turn 3, and it was kind of over at that point. I mean, we won 6-0 with a big Volcarona sweep. Volcarona got every single kill that game, so that was. I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but I think that's pretty impressive.
No, I mean honestly, the only 6-0 of the year
I
came
think
at the
so, yeah.
last match of the season.
Which is kind of crazy, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel that honestly it does diminish a little bit with the Sky Pillars because
That's true,
while it
yeah.
was a 6-0, it was such a tough match to prep for. There were so many variables that we will talk about later on, but the score makes it look a little bit easier than it actually was. Those were hard fought matches the whole
Yeah.
time. We identified right away that if the Chandelure wasn't going to be able to come, the Comfey was going to, or that the Volcarona was going to cause major issues for their team, and it did. So props to the Sky Pillars. We're obviously stoked taking our first championship after barely missing out on making it to finals last year. So, you know, yeah. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it can be overstated how incredible the Sky Pillars did,
Yeah.
especially given uh, the perception of new teams who come in and just say they want to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
They had an incredibly powerful draft. It was a little bit top heavy, which we didn't really care for that much at the beginning, but clearly it worked for them. I mean, it's they have a lot of great synergy. They have great mons, and even if you kind of know what they're going to bring every week, uh, didn't really hurt them that much because the draft was just that good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't think if you told us at the beginning of the season, oh yeah, the Sky Pillars are going to make it to finals, we probably would have looked at each other like, really? I mean, okay, but really?
Yeah.
And then they started picking up win after win after win.
Solid, good wins too.
Yeah.
No luck involved.
Yeah.
Just good prep, good play. It just all around elite. That's all I could keep saying is
Yeah.
elite play, elite level prep.
Yeah, and it took them to finals as it probably should have. So, yeah, I don't think it can be overstated how well they did. Just especially given how they looked at the beginning. I don't think anybody really knew, but they come into the interview and they say, oh, we're just gonna have fun, maybe pick up a few wins, and we're like, okay,
We got Golurk. That
yeah,
seems fun.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then you max Golurk like 4 times, and it actually works. You're not just maxing Golurk to max Golurk.
We don't want to get too much into it because we are going to go over it a little bit more, but we prepped a lot for Golurk. And people are over here saying, oh man, Golurk was a bust. Golurk was... No. We forced it into those positions so that way we could neuter it. We needed to do that or we were going to lose. We saw what it was doing to other teams.
Yeah, it was pretty dangerous. Much like Snarl Spam is really good against our team. So is a Stab Max Quake.
Yes.
So we had to make sure that we had ways of dealing with it, which we did. So,
all right. Well, with that was the final. That wraps up this season. But before we go, we are going to just shout out real quick. Special thanks, people. First and foremost, we have Dave, basically our commish, the league coordinator, the guy who makes sure everything's put together. Big thanks to you. Big thanks to the admin team that this guy's a part of here too.
I also want to say that Dave opted to not play this season, so that not only so that everybody else could have a shot, but also to run the league kind of from the outside. He didn't even have a stake in it, and he was still here, getting things done.
The mod team that we have, first year that we had them, but they honestly made everything run much smoother because when Dave wasn't around, we had mods with consistent judgments that were passed down real nice, real swift, kept everything running nice and smooth.
Yeah.
Our MVP, Dina, the producer, the editor, the director, talent manager, everything. Anything that's done that's not just sitting up here and stupidly talking in front of a camera, it's done by her. So huge thanks to her because basically none of this would happen if it wasn't for her. So once again, big thanks to Dina. All the teams who joined us for an interview this year, whether it be in the beginning of the season when we had you, to talk about your draft, so we could just rip you and you just had to listen to us tell you how bad your draft is. Thank you for doing that. And if you came on with it for us just to interview during the middle of the season, whether we talked to you about a big win or whatever, thank you for that too. We very much appreciated it. It was honestly great doing this year. It was our first time doing these videos,
Yeah.
so honestly, this league is so much fun. Just it was worth it.
So that wraps up our content for season 4. Now that the season has concluded, I'd like to reiterate that we are the champions of this season. Seems fitting. So we're gonna continue doing this stuff for season 5. Actually,
As long as we keep winning.
yeah. Oh yeah. If
The
we
second we lose, we're out of here.
yeah.
Done.
So, to start off our season 5 content, before the draft begins, we're actually going to put out a draft guide. We feel that we've been a part of this league for 3 seasons now. Our first season was a little bit rough, especially in terms of our draft. That was the first time that either of us have been in a Pokemon draft league.
Made the playoffs.
Yeah, barely. We did.
Squeaked in.
Partially because of our transactions, which is
Squeaked in.
something we'll talk about in our draft guide
Yes.
for sure. And then, I think we've been able to consistently draft pretty well since then. We've done well, and we're also planning on reaching out to a couple of other top teams to get their thoughts on maybe some tips for drafting for multi battles as well. So we'll kind of give our thoughts on what it takes to make a good draft. What's how to make certain decisions when certain things are on the field. Maybe what to do when you get sniped. Maybe what kind of trades you might want to make later in the season. That kind of thing. So we're gonna be putting together some stuff like that. This draft guide was mostly your idea. Do you have anything more you want to say about it before we do it?
Essentially, what I want to do is kind of just, if we're going to be judging you and putting down grades, kind of give you an idea of what we look for and how we put a team together.
Yeah.
We're going to give you our input on what we think on value, as far as where you're drafting certain Pokemon, what roles you're drafting them for. The synergy in which your team has and stuff like that, what we think about that, but also some other teams too. I would like to get some teams that, if they've won championships, like Doesn't Click, like Team Pussy, we'd love to talk to them, pick their brains a little bit. If you guys can think of anything else too, we'd love to hear from you, anything that you're looking for as far as team building that you're confused about. But main reason is that we noticed that a lot of teams come into here never having drafted in a Pokemon League before, so
Or even in a multi-battle
or in a
league, because
multi-battle league, 'cause that's
a pretty
different.
significant change from regular doubles
Yeah.
too. More than you might expect. I think it took us by surprise the first time we played.
Yes, it really does. There are certain things that in prep that you need to cover that you wouldn't need to cover in VGC. So that's mostly kind of what I want to break down, is just giving teams a solid foundation if they're not too sure, on what to look for when you're drafting in these multi-battle leagues. Because you wouldn't think, but just one thing is follow me is a huge premium in these leagues, and you see it a little bit more now, but in VGC league you can almost get away with not having it. It's not that big of a deal, but in MBL you need to have it. You need to have some form to kind of get what you want to enable to be able to do what it needs to do. So, because you don't have that versatility where you could just switch around sides. You have 3 mons on one
Yeah.
side, 3 mons on the other. So you need to make sure you're controlling the board state as best you can.
Yeah.
So that's mainly what we want to do. So if you guys can think of anything else, that you want us to add, go ahead and let us know.
Yeah, for sure. We're willing to talk about pretty much any topic suggestions that you guys have. So that's that'll be fun. After that, once the draft has concluded for season 5, Again, this is a long ways off. This is probably more like late January, early February, something like that. We don't really have any solid dates yet, but that's kind of what we're expecting for the start of season 5. After that draft is completed, we're gonna be doing kind of the same thing we did at the beginning of season 4. We're gonna have those post draft team interviews and analyses. Last time we basically gave everybody like a report card with a picture of their draft and graded them on certain aspects of how good their team is. Gave them an overall grade, some pros and cons, and we tried to interview as many teams as we could. We want to do the that exact same thing again. If you are down for an interview about your draft, we would love to have you for sure.
Yes, we want all the teams.
Yeah, we want as many as possible. We understand it might not be possible for everybody. We couldn't get everybody last time. But if we interviewed last time, we want you back. If we didn't interview you last time, or you're a new team in season 5, we're excited to meet you guys and on the mic and chat with you about your team. So anyone and everyone that is available for an interview, we'd love to have you. And after that, once the season gets started, we're actually going to be changing things up. Instead of doing these regular analysis videos and these weekly breakdowns, we're actually going to have like a weekly breakdown stream. It's more something we're going to experiment with, but if it turns out to not be so great, then we'll go back to our usual shtick. But it'll probably be on Sundays, I would think.
Yeah.
Each week we will stream and kind of talk about the same stuff that we've been talking about in these weekly breakdowns and these power rankings. We will probably still be doing power rankings, except this time it'll be more. We're kind of thinking of it as more of like a podcast style thing instead of just a more produced, like pre-recorded video like these like we've been trying to aim for with these. And that way we'll be able to interact with people in the chat more often if they're able to make it there. So we can kind of talk to you guys in real time as we're going through all this stuff. We can, if we really need to pull up some matches and go back to a particular point in the match to see kind of what happened or how much damage a thing did, or to remind us of what Pokemon was carrying what item, or anything like that. We can just do that on the spot. So it'll be a little bit more free form, but we're gonna hit on the same topics. It'll just be it'll allow us to interact with you guys more, and it'll be more a little bit more casual, a little bit more conversational. But basically the same content. Just hopefully, if everything goes the way we think it will, it'll be just kind of an upgrade with that with the live stream being a factor. And if you're not able to make the live stream, the stream archive will be available on our channel as well, so you can always watch the videos later on as usual. So
increasing league interaction is kind of our main goal.
Yeah.
So as much as we felt that the videos did a great job at that, we're always looking to try and make it more interactive. So having a scheduled time where we can come on, shoot the crap with you guys, talk with you guys about your guys' matches. If you're in the chat and we're talking about your match, maybe ask you a couple questions. Maybe get you in a Discord call. So, you never know. Stuff like this, all this is possibilities. That's why we kind of like it a little bit more. So
yeah,
it's gonna be fun. Also, we didn't add this on the slide there, but we are gonna be breaking down our finals match as well. So
that's right. Yeah. So I think we mentioned that already. But yeah, if you're wanting to check out the entirety of the finals match, if you missed the stream or something, or you want our thoughts on that whole set, we're actually going to be doing some post commentary on that. Usually we just upload our matches as they are. This one is, it's a bit of a special match, so we're gonna do some post commentary on that. So we hope you guys enjoy that.
Yeah. All right, I think that's it, huh?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, so we're wrapping up season 4, guys. We're walking away here champions, and we'll see you guys later as the defending champions. All right, see you guys.